Rain in Jakarta doesn't fall gently. It presses down on rooftops, on tangled power lines, on exhausted people trying to survive another night shift under flickering streetlights and broken traffic signals. By 2 in the morning, the whole city starts feeling half drowned. That night, I was parked outside a small Indomaret near East Jakarta, watching rainwater crawl down my windshield in crooked little rivers, while my phone sat mounted beside the speedometer, glowing like an open eye in the dark. No new orders, just the soft electronic hum of the Gojek app, searching for passengers that probably weren't coming. I remember rubbing my face and checking the time again. 2:13 a.m. My back hurt, my knees hurt, my entire body felt damp. Not wet, damp. Like the rain had somehow crawled inside my clothes and settled into my bones. I'd been driving for almost 11 hours. The inside of the car smelled like old coffee, wet fabric, and the cheap clove cigarettes I kept promising myself I'd quit. Outside, the rain hammered the metal awning above the convenience store, hard enough to drown out the distant call to prayer, echoing through the neighborhood speakers. That sound always felt strange at night. Not comforting, just lonely. Like someone talking to a city that stopped listening a long time ago. I leaned back in my seat and stared through the windshield at the empty road ahead of me. A delivery rider sped past. Water sprayed from his tires. Gone in seconds, then silence again. The kind of silence that doesn't feel natural in a city this crowded. My phone buzzed suddenly, loud. I flinched harder than I should have. A new ride request. I almost ignored it. Almost. The pickup location made me pause. Jalan Kuburan Lama Old Burial Road. I frowned. There weren't many houses out there anymore. Mostly abandoned buildings and flooded lots near an old cemetery the government kept promising to relocate. Nobody requested rides from there this late, especially not during heavy rain. The passenger profile was blank. No photo, no rating, no name. Just a gray default icon staring back at me. For a second, I honestly thought the app was glitching. Then my phone buzzed again. The timer was running out. I accepted the ride. The GPS recalculated immediately. 21 minutes away. I sighed. Started the engine. The car shuddered awake beneath me. The windshield wipers dragged themselves across the glass with a tired squeal. I pulled out onto the road. Jakarta after midnight feels like a completely different country. The daytime noise disappears first. Then the traffic, then eventually even the people. All that's left are puddles reflecting broken neon signs and tiny food stalls still glowing beside empty streets, like they forgot the world already went to sleep. The roads got narrower the farther east I drove. Streetlights became weaker too. Some were completely dead. Others flickered weakly above flooded sidewalks where stray cats dug through plastic bags drifting in rainwater. I kept checking the GPS. The signal kept lagging. Not enough to completely fail, just enough to annoy me. Every few minutes, the route line would twitch slightly, like it couldn't decide where I actually was. I blamed the storm. That's what I told myself anyway. At 2:31 a.m., I stopped near a tiny roadside warung with a blue tarp roof flapping violently in the wind. I needed caffeine badly. An old woman stood behind the counter, pouring instant coffee into plastic cups, while a tiny television mounted near the ceiling played some old Indonesian soap opera at low volume. The entire place smelled like frying oil and wet wood. I stepped out into ankle-deep water and hurried under the tarp. The woman looked up slowly when she saw me. Not smiling, not unfriendly either, just tired. "Long night?" she asked. "Yeah. You drivers work too hard." I gave a weak laugh. "You're still open." "Somebody has to be." Rain exploded against the tarp overhead. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes drifted past me, toward my car. Something in her expression changed, very slightly. "You heading farther down this road?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." I pointed toward my phone. "Pick up." She nodded once, slowly. Too slowly. "Near the cemetery?" I remember feeling annoyed for some reason, like everybody suddenly wanted to make the place sound creepier than it was. "Probably," I said. "It's just another passenger." The old woman kept staring toward the car. Not at me, at the back seat. Her face looked different now. Tighter, the television crackled softly behind her. Rainwater dripped from the edge of the tarp beside my shoulder. Then she asked something that made the skin on my arms tighten immediately. "Who's sitting back there with you?" I turned so fast I almost spilled the coffee. The car was empty. Of course it was empty. Just shadows, wet seats. My jacket tossed carelessly in the back. "That's not funny," I muttered. The old woman didn't answer. When I looked back at her, she was suddenly busy wiping the counter with a rag that looked older than I was, like she regretted saying anything at all. I stood there another few seconds, listening to the rain, waiting for her to explain. She never did. Eventually, I went back to the car. The moment I opened the driver's door, cold air spilled out from inside. Not air conditioning cold, different wet heavy, like opening a freezer full of soaked clothes. I froze with one hand on the roof of the car. Something smelled wrong. Not rotten, not exactly, just damp fabric earth. Mud like rainwater trapped too long underground. I checked the back seat again. Nothing there. My pulse had started beating harder now, though. I hated that. I hated feeling manipulated by old ghost stories. I got back in, locked the doors immediately, and that's when I noticed something strange. The seatbelt warning light was on. Passenger detected, rear seat. I stared at the dashboard for several seconds, then laughed nervously under my breath. Probably my jacket. Had to be. I reached behind me without looking and grabbed the fabric off the seat. The warning light stayed on. A strange pressure slowly settled into my chest. Outside, the rain somehow sounded quieter now, like the world itself was holding its breath. My phone buzzed again. The app notification filled the screen. Passenger waiting, distance remaining. 2 minutes. I swallowed hard, then kept driving. The cemetery road appeared through the rain a minute later. Narrow, flooded, completely empty, no houses, no lights. Only leaning trees swaying slowly beside broken concrete walls swallowed by vines. My headlights swept across the entrance sign. Jalan Kuburan, Lama Half, the letters were missing. The GPS voice spoke calmly through the speakers. "Your destination is ahead." That's when the rear suspension of the car shifted downward, slowly, as if someone had just climbed into the back seat behind me. And this time, Abby heard the leather creak, right next to my ear. I should have left. That's the part that still bothers me the most. Not the road, not the thing in the back seat, not even what happened later. It's the fact that some part of me already knew something was wrong. And I kept driving anyway. Because that's what exhaustion does to you after enough nights alone. It dulls survival instincts. Turns fear into inconvenience. The cemetery road stretched ahead of me like a river of black glass beneath the headlights. Rainwater shimmered across cracked pavement. Trees leaned inward from both sides, their branches twitching in the wind like fingers tapping against the dark. No houses, no motorcycles, no people, nothing, just rain, and that smell. That damp soil smell lingering inside the car. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The rear suspension still felt heavy, like somebody was sitting directly behind me, not moving, just there. I glanced at the rearview mirror again. A dim seat, My jacket gone now because I'd tossed it onto the passenger side floor, nothing else. But the leather creaked again, softly. A tiny shift of weight. My throat tightened. Okay, I whispered to myself. Enough. I pulled the car to the side of the road, hazard lights blinking weakly against the rain. Orange flashes. On, off, on, off. I turned around fully this time. Nothing. The back seat looked exactly the same. Wet umbrella, puree plastic bottle. Dark fabric seats reflecting tiny streaks of yellow streetlight through the rain. I laughed once under my breath. Too quickly. Too forced. Then my phone buzzed again. The app notification appeared instantly. Passenger waiting. Please proceed to pickup point. Distance remaining 34 meters. I frowned. There was nothing ahead except an old concrete gate, partially swallowed by vines and floodwater, the cemetery entrance. I rolled forward slowly. The headlights swept across crooked gravestones beyond the gate. Most were tilted sideways beneath overgrown weeds and standing water. Something about the place felt abandoned wrong. Not empty, not forgotten. More like avoided, like the city itself had quietly agreed not to look directly at it anymore. Then the GPS voice spoke again, calm, mechanical. You have arrived. I stopped breathing for a second, because there was someone standing near the gate now. I swear there hadn't been a person there 2 seconds earlier, but suddenly, there they were, tall, completely still beneath the rain. My headlights couldn't fully reach the figure because of the storm, but I could make out white fabric, hanging down almost to the ground. My pulse stumbled. For one horrible second, my brain tried connecting it to every ghost story I'd ever heard growing up. Pocong, the rap dead, the tied burial cloth. Don't be stupid. I immediately forced myself to think logically. Probably somebody wearing a poncho, or carrying fabric, or the figure moved, not walking, not running. Just shifting slightly closer in a strange uneven motion that made my stomach tighten instantly. I blinked hard. The headlights flickered from the rain, and suddenly the figure was gone. Completely gone. I jerked upright in my seat. Nothing near the gate anymore. Only rain hammering the concrete. My heartbeat was loud enough to hurt. Jesus. I grabbed my phone. The ride status changed. Passenger on board. I stared at the screen. Then slowly looked toward the empty back seat again. The leather creaked right behind me. A cold pulse crawled down my spine. Nope. I threw the car into reverse immediately. Tires splashed violently through floodwater. The engine whined. The rear of the car shifted hard as I backed away from the cemetery gate. Then the dashboard radio exploded with static. I nearly swerved into a drainage ditch. The speakers crackled violently for 3 straight seconds before a voice pushed through the interference. Soft, distorted, a woman's voice, cold. I slammed the radio off. Silence. Only rain again. Heavy breathing filled the car now. Mine. Just mine. I drove faster after that. Didn't care about the ride anymore. Didn't care about ratings. I just wanted streetlights again. People. Noise. Anything human. The cemetery disappeared behind me in the rain. But the weight in the back seat never changed. The suspension still sat lower on the left side. Like someone was still there, watching. I kept checking the mirror every few seconds. Nothing. Empty seat. Every time. Still, atmosphere inside the car kept changing. The windows fogged from the inside despite the air conditioning running full blast. Tiny droplets formed along the rear glass. My hands started shaking slightly on the steering wheel. Get a grip, I muttered. I sounded angry now, not scared. That's important. People always think fear looks dramatic. It doesn't. Real fear usually looks like irritation first. Denial. You start arguing with reality because the alternative feels impossible. I reached for my cigarettes with trembling fingers, dropped one onto the floor mat. Perfect. I lit another one immediately. The orange glow filled the car for a moment. Then I saw it. In the rearview mirror, not a face, not clearly, just white fabric, a shape sitting directly behind my seat. My entire body locked up. I spun around instantly. Nothing. Backseat empty again. But the cigarette between my fingers had gone out. I don't mean slowly, I mean instantly. Like someone pinched the ember dead. The temperature inside the car dropped even lower. My breath became visible. That should have been impossible in Jakarta, even during rainstorms. But there it was. Thin fog leaving my mouth every time I exhaled. I started driving faster. Streetlights finally appeared ahead through the storm. A small intersection, Mimini Market, food carts, human life. Thank God. I pulled beside a roadside noodle stall packed with delivery riders hiding from the rain. Noise flooded around me immediately. Scooters revving. Metal spoons clanking against bowls. Someone laughing loudly at a TikTok video. The normal world. I almost cried from relief. I parked hard enough to splash water onto the sidewalk and stepped outside into warm, humid air. The difference hit instantly. No freezing temperature, no strange smell, nothing. Just Jakarta. I stood there breathing hard beside the car while rain soaked my sleeves. One of the younger riders looked over. "You okay, bro?" "Yeah." My voice cracked slightly. "Long night," he laughed knowingly. Ain't that the truth? I forced myself to calm down. Maybe exhaustion really was messing with me. Lack of sleep, too much caffeine, too many ghost stories growing up. That had to be it. I unlocked the rear door, opened it fully. Nothing inside. No footprints, no water stains, no person wrapped in burial cloth staring silently from the dark. Just empty seats. I laughed again. This time it almost sounded normal. Then the young rider beside the noodle cart frowned. "You driving someone?" "No." He pointed casually toward my back seat. "Then why didn't your passenger get out?" The world seemed to stop moving for a second. Rain, traffic voices. Everything suddenly felt far away. "What?" The rider shrugged. "The woman in white." My blood turned to ice. "She was sitting behind you." I stared at him. He immediately noticed my expression changing. His smile disappeared too. "Wait," he said slowly. "You seriously didn't see her?" I couldn't answer, because at that exact moment, my phone buzzed again. I looked down, new notification, not from the app, from the dashcam system. Motion detected inside vehicle, .sprint 2:47 a.m. My hands started trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. The rider beside me laughed nervously. "You good, man?" I didn't answer. I opened the dashcam footage. Static filled the screen first, white noise, broken pixels. Then the image stabilized driver's seat. Rain outside Tam Road behind me. And there, sitting perfectly still in the back seat, was a shape wrapped entirely in soaked white burial cloth. Its head tilted slightly sideways, facing directly toward the camera. It wasn't moving, not breathing, not blinking, just watching, then slowly, very slowly, cloth around its face tightened inward, as if something underneath it was smiling. And the video ended there. I watched the footage 3 times. Then 4. Then maybe 10 more after that. Every single time, the same thing happened, the static, the frozen image, the shape in the back seat, and that impossible tightening around the cloth where a mouth should be smiling. Not naturally, not human. Like something underneath the fabric had learned what smiling looked like, without understanding why people did it. Rain hammered against the noodle stall roof above us. Nobody else seemed to notice the sound changing around me, because it did change. Everything suddenly felt muffled, distant, like my ears had filled with water. "You okay, bro?" The delivery rider's voice sounded warped now, far away. I locked my phone screen immediately. "Yeah, lie. I just need air." I walked away before he could ask more questions. My legs felt weak. Not dramatic weak, not movie weak. The kind where your knees stop trusting the ground beneath them. I stood beside a flickering vending machine near the intersection, trying to breathe normally, while scooters hissed through rainwater nearby. Think logically, somebody got into the car. That's all. Maybe a homeless woman. Maybe somebody mentally ill, maybe. The old woman at the Warong had planted the idea in my head, and exhaustion filled in the rest. That made sense. It had to make sense. Because the alternative. My phone buzzed again. I flinched violently this time. Ride app notification. Trip still. Active destination. Unknown. Passenger status. On board. I stared at the screen in disbelief. There should have been a destination after pickup. There always was. But this ride just kept running. No map, no route, no endpoint. Just that single word. On board, my chest tightened. I reopened the rear door again. Nothing empty seats. Rain smelled darkness, that's all. But the second I closed the door, the suspension dipped downward again. Right in front of me, as if invisible weight had settled into the seat. The car physically moved. The young rider nearby noticed too. His smile vanished immediately. "Nah," he whispered. I looked at him. He backed away from the car slowly. "Nope." Then he got on his scooter and left without another word. Just like that. I suddenly realized something horrible. Nobody else at the noodle stall was looking at me anymore. Not even casually. Every single person there was pretending not to notice my car, like they didn't want attention from whatever might be inside it. The rain somehow felt colder now. I got back into the driver's seat, because standing outside suddenly felt worse. Safer inside the car. That thought alone should have terrified me more than it did. The moment I shut the door, the smell returned instantly. Wet earth, old cloth, and something faint underneath it, sweet. Like flowers left too long in standing water. I gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt my fingers. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, you're taking this thing somewhere." The app remained open on my dashboard mount, dot trip active. No destination, no timer, just the small passenger icon blinking softly. Then the GPS map shifted on its own. A route appeared. I didn't touch anything. The blue line crawled slowly across the screen toward another part of East Jakarta, toward the flooded district near the river canals. Estimated arrival, 18 minutes. I should have ended the ride, deleted the app, gone home. Instead, AB started driving again. Because once fear settles into your bloodstream deeply enough, your brain starts doing something strange. It stops asking, "How do I escape?" and starts asking, "How does this end?" That's the trap. The roads were emptier now. Even the late-night food carts had started closing. Rain blurred everything outside into streaks of yellow and black. Every few minutes, I checked the mirror. Nothing, still empty. But now, fog on the rear windows had changed. Lines appeared inside the condensation, thin marks, like fingers dragging slowly across wet glass from the inside. I nearly swerved into another lane. No. I wiped the mirror hard with my sleeve. The marks disappeared, then slowly returned, one line at a time. I rolled the windows down slightly. Warm, humid air rushed inside. The smell remained. A motorcycle passed beside me briefly at a red light. The rider glanced toward my back seat, then looked away immediately. Too fast. Like he regretted looking. The light turned green. He accelerated hard and disappeared into the rain. My heartbeat kept getting worse, not faster, heavier. Each pulse felt thick now, like blood struggling through my veins. Then came the whispering. At first, I thought it was radio interference again. Just soft static underneath the sound of rain. But after a few seconds, AB realized it had rhythm, words, very quiet, very close. Like somebody leaning toward my ear from the back seat. I couldn't understand the language fully. Arabic maybe, prayer, funeral prayer. I turned the radio on full volume immediately. Music exploded through the speakers. Didn't matter, the whispering continued underneath it. Soft per pattern. Relentless. I pressed harder on the gas pedal. The city outside started feeling wrong too. Not visually, emotionally. Every road looked unfamiliar suddenly. Every intersection seemed stretched slightly longer than it should be. Street lights flickered seconds too late. Buildings looked distorted through the rain, like Jakarta itself was slowly drifting somewhere else while I drove through it. Then I noticed the time, 2:47 a.m., still. I checked again, 2:47. The dashboard clock wasn't moving, neither was my phone clock. Cold spread through my stomach instantly. No. I accelerated harder. The engine whined. Rain slammed against the windshield violently now. Then the whispering stopped. Complete silence filled the car. That scared me more, because silence means attention. I looked into the rearview mirror, and finally AB saw it clearly. Not fully, just enough. A figure wrapped in soaked white burial cloth sitting upright behind me, head tilted unnaturally sideways. The knot above its head pressed tightly beneath wet fabric. The cloth around its face sagged inward slightly, where eyes should been darkness underneath. Not skin, not features, just hollow space. Water dripped steadily from the bottom edge of the shroud onto the floor mat. Drip, 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 my lungs locked. The figure didn't move. It just sat there, watching me through layers of soaked burial cloth. Then slowly, one side of its head twitched, a tiny movement, like curiosity. I spun around violently, backside empty. Agon, I screamed. Actually screamed this time. The car swerved across wet pavement. Horns exploded nearby. A truck nearly clipped my rear bumper as I fishtailed back into lane. Breathing hurt now. My chest felt too tight. My hands had gone numb. I looked at the mirror again. Then the whispering returned. Closer this time, right beside my ear, and in perfect Indonesian now. Cold. I nearly crashed again. Please. The voice sounded wet, weak, Tom Ale. Take me home. I don't remember deciding to answer, but suddenly I heard myself speaking. Where? Silence. Then, you left me there. My stomach dropped so hard it physically hurt. What? The whispering became distorted again. Floodwater. Couldn't breathe. Dark. Something cold touched the back of my seat, not hard, just pressure. Like a wet hand resting gently against the fabric inches behind my spine. I lost it, completely. I slammed the brakes so hard the tires screamed across flooded pavement. The car skidded sideways beneath a dead traffic light. Engine stalled. Rain hammered the roof violently, and for the first time since this nightmare began, rear-view mirror no longer showed an empty seat. The thing was fully there now, sitting directly behind me. Motionless, its head slowly leaned forward, closer to my shoulder, closer, until I could hear water dripping from the cloth onto the seat beneath it. Then the knot tied above its head began to move, tightening, twisting, as though something underneath the burial cloth was trying to get out. I couldn't move. People always imagine fear as panic. screaming, running, but real terror freezes you first. Your body stops belonging to you. The thing behind me sat perfectly still while rain exploded across the windshield hard enough to blur the entire world outside into liquid darkness. The engine was dead. The traffic light above the intersection no longer worked. Just a black silhouette hanging above flooded streets. And in the rearview mirror, that thing kept leaning closer. Not fast, slow. Patient, its soaked burial cloth sagged inward around the face, like wet paper pressed over a skull. Water dripped steadily from the edges onto the leather seat beneath it. Drip, drip, drip. The knot above its head twisted slightly again. Tighter, the fabric underneath bulged for one horrible second, as though something inside the shroud had just inhaled. My mouth finally worked again. "What do you want from me?" The whispering stopped instantly. Then silence, complete silence. Even the rain sounded farther away now. The figure tilted its head slowly sideways, listening. Then the voice came again, closer than before. "You left me there." I felt my stomach collapse inward. "No," I whispered immediately. "I don't know you." The cloth around its face tightened slightly. Not smiling this time, something worse, recognition. "You saw the road closed." My heartbeat stumbled violently, because suddenly, I remembered, not clearly, fragments, a storm months ago, flooded roads, a female passenger request near the Canal District. I had cancelled it, not because of danger, because I was tired, because the roads were too flooded, because I didn't want to drive another 40 minutes through heavy rain for a cheap fare. I swallowed hard. "No," the whispering continued. "You left me walking." Something cold brushed the back of my neck through the seat. I jerked forward violently. The dashboard lights flickered. Then, every screen inside the car shut off simultaneously. Pitch black. My breathing became ragged immediately. Outside, rainwater rushed through gutters beside the road. Somewhere nearby, metal clanged softly in the wind. And from the darkness behind me came the sound of wet fabric shifting, closer. I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands. The flashlight turned on. The beam swept wildly across the car interior empty seats. Nothing there. I almost sobbed from relief. Then the flashlight beam reached the floor behind the driver's seat. Mud. Fresh, mud-dark water pooled beneath the rear seat like someone had climbed inside, dripping wet from floodwater. And resting in the center of it was a woman's bracelet tilva, bent slightly out of shape. Something about it felt horribly familiar. Then I remembered exactly where I'd seen it before. The missing persons post, months earlier, shared everywhere online for 2 days, before people moved on to something else. A university student, female, missing during severe flooding after her rideshare driver cancelled late at night. Last seen walking near the old cemetery district. I remembered the bracelet because people kept posting pictures of it beside her smiling graduation photos. My lungs stopped working properly. "No." The whispering returned immediately. Cold. I looked into the rearview mirror again. The seat was empty, but now the condensation on the rear window formed words slowly by themselves. "Why?" My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I didn't know. The letters vanished instantly, then more appeared beneath them. "You left me there." The temperature inside the car dropped again. This time it became unbearable. Thin frost spread across the corners of the windshield, despite the tropical heat outside. Frost. In Jakarta. I started the engine desperately. Nothing. Just clicking. Rain hammered harder. The whispering began overlapping now. Multiple voices. Soft prayers tangled together beneath the sound of water. Not angry, not violent mourning. I looked outside through the windshield. and realized something terrifying. The intersection was gone. No stores, no buildings, no traffic. Just flooded road stretching endlessly into darkness beneath swaying trees. The city had disappeared. My pulse became painful. No. Then headlights appeared behind me suddenly. A motorcycle. Its beam cut through the rain briefly before stopping beside my driver's side window. An old man in a green rain poncho stared at me through soaked glass. I rolled the window down immediately. "Please," I said, "my car." Then he looked past me, toward the back seat. His expression changed instantly. Not shock, recognition like he already knew. "You picked her up," he said quietly. My blood froze. "What?" The old man removed his helmet slowly. Rainwater streamed down his face. "You shouldn't let her inside." "She was never inside," I snapped. The old man kept staring toward the rear seat, then finally looked back at me. "You hear the prayers now, don't you?" I couldn't answer, because yes, I did. Louder now, the sound of funeral recitations drifting softly through the car from nowhere and everywhere at once. The old man nodded grimly. She was buried wrong. A chill crawled through my body. "What?" The flood came before they finished the ritual. His voice stayed calm. The burial cloth knots were never untied. I stared at him through the rain. "In our tradition," he continued softly, "the dead must be released properly. Otherwise..." He glanced toward the back seat again. "They keep trying to come home." The whispering inside the car intensified suddenly. Wet fabric creaked behind me. The old man stepped backward immediately. "You need to return her." "How?" His eyes shifted toward the cemetery road behind me, the old burial district, where the water took her. Lightning flashed overhead. For one split second, the inside of my car illuminated bright white, and in that flash, I saw her fully. The Pocong sat upright behind me. Soaked burial cloth wrapped tightly around a human shape, too thin to still be alive. The knot above her head strained violently beneath wet fabric. Her face pressed outward from inside the shroud now. Not skin, not flesh, just movement. Like something trapped beneath layers of cloth, trying desperately to breathe. Then the light vanished.
"Darkness again,"
I screamed. The old man backed away instantly. "Go," he shouted. The engine suddenly roared back to life by itself. The GPS screen flickered on. New destination set automatically. Jalan Kuburan Lama, estimated arrival 6 minutes. The rear seat creaked again, slowly, carefully. As though the thing behind me had finally settled in comfortably. Then the whispering stopped completely. Only one voice remained now. Right beside my ear, soft, almost relieved. "Take me home." That was the moment I understood something truly horrible. She wasn't haunting the car. She was haunting me. Because somewhere deep down, she knew I was the reason she died. The road back to Jalan Kuburan Lama looked different now. Not physically worse. It felt familiar. Like the city had been peeled open beneath the rain, exposing something ancient underneath the traffic lights and concrete and phone towers. Something patient. Something that had been waiting long before any of us arrived. I drove through flooded streets with both hands locked around the steering wheel, while the thing behind me sat perfectly still in silence. No whispering anymore. No movement. Just presence. Heavy, cold. The GPS kept recalculating every few seconds, even though there was only one road ahead. ETA, 5 minutes, then 4, then suddenly 9 again. Like the app itself didn't want to go near the cemetery. The old man on the motorcycle followed behind me at a distance for part of the drive. Sometimes I saw his headlight through the rain. Sometimes it vanished completely. I started wondering if he'd even been real. By the time I reached the cemetery district again, The rain had weakened into a soft, steady drizzle that somehow felt worse. Heavy storms hide things. Light rain lets you hear them. The cemetery gate stood ahead exactly where I remembered it. Broken concrete walls. Floodwater pooled beneath crooked graves. Trees bending slowly in the wind. And absolute silence. No insects, no traffic, no dogs barking, nothing. The GPS voice spoke one final time. "You have arrived." Then the screen died completely. I swallowed hard. The interior lights flickered weakly as I opened the driver's door. The smell hit harder outside. Wet soil flowers. Decay hidden beneath rainwater. The burial cloth behind me rustled softly for the first time in several minutes. I turned slowly toward the back seat. She was there. Fully there now. No disappearing. No tricks with mirrors. The Pocong sat upright beneath dim yellow dashboard light. Soaked white fabric, clinging tightly around the shape of a human body. The knot above her head looked strained almost to breaking. Her face pressed faintly beneath the cloth now. Not detailed, not human anymore. Just shape. Indentation. Movement beneath wet fabric waiting. Every instinct inside me screamed not to get closer. But guilt is a strange thing. After enough pressure, it starts feeling heavier than fear. My legs carried me around to the rear passenger door. Before my brain fully agreed, the handle felt freezing cold. I opened the door slowly. The smell intensified instantly. Mud rainwater. And that awful sweetness again. Like funeral flowers left too long beside standing water. The Pocong didn't attack me. Didn't lunge. Didn't scream. She only sat there staring through layers of soaked burial cloth, while water dripped steadily onto the floor mat beneath her bound legs. Drip, drip, drip. My breathing sounded too loud. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Nothing happened. Wind moved softly through the cemetery behind us. Then the knot above her head tightened suddenly. The entire shroud jerked once, violently. I stumbled backward in panic. The old man's voice echoed in my memory. The dead must be released properly. My shaking hands reached upward slowly, toward the knot. The moment my fingers touched the wet cloth, something impossible happened. The world around me changed. Not visually at first. Emotionally. A wave of freezing grief slammed into my chest so hard I nearly collapsed. I saw flashes rain, floodwater rising. A young woman walking alone beneath broken streetlights while repeatedly checking her phone. Ride cancelled. Battery dying. Water climbing higher around her ankles, then knees, then darkness. The visions hit like drowning memories that didn't belong to me. Her fear, her confusion. Her final moments trapped beneath black floodwater while the city kept moving without noticing she was gone. I gasped and nearly pulled away. But the knot tightened harder beneath my fingers. The Pocong's body trembled once waiting. I untied the first knot. The reaction was immediate. Every light around the cemetery exploded simultaneously. Streetlights, dashboard lights. Even distant houses beyond the trees flickered violently bright white. The prayer whispering returned all at once. Dozens of voices overlapping inside the rain, not threatening mourning. The Pocong leaned forward slightly. The second knot came loose easier. The soaked burial cloth loosened around her body with a wet, dragging sound. Then the whispering stopped. Complete silence fell across the cemetery. Even the rain paused. The figure sitting in the back seat slowly lifted its head toward me one final time. And for a brief moment, Abby could see her face beneath the cloth. Not destroyed, not monstrous, just tired. A young woman who should made it home that night. Then the fabric collapsed inward. Empty, the entire burial shroud fell lifeless onto the seat like wet laundry abandoned after a storm. That was it. No scream, no violent ending. Just absence, the crushing kind. I stood there shaking beside the open car door while dawn slowly began bleeding grey light into the edges of the sky. Somewhere far away, morning prayer echoed softly through Jakarta. The city waking up again, traffic returning, life continuing, like none of this had ever happened. The old man on the motorcycle was gone. Maybe he'd left. Maybe he was never there at all. I drove home just before sunrise. I threw the burial cloth away somewhere along the canal road. Or at least AB think I did. That part feels blurry now. The app returned to normal afterward. No more whispers, no more freezing air, no more impossible passengers, for a while. A month later, I almost convinced myself the entire thing had been some kind of breakdown caused by exhaustion and guilt. Almost. Then came another storm. Another late shift. Another empty road after 2 a.m. My phone buzzed while I waited at a red light. New ride request. I glanced down automatically and felt every muscle in my body lock instantly. Pickup location, Jalan Kuburan Lama. Passenger. 1 estimated fare. No profile picture. No name, just a gray default icon, the same one. My breathing became shallow immediately. The light turned green. Cars behind me started honking. I couldn't move. Then slowly, very slowly, rear suspension of my car lowered again, as if someone had quietly settled into the back seat behind me. And this time, AB didn't look in the mirror, because some part of me already knew she had gone home. But something else had followed me back. So if you ever drive alone late at night, and your rideshare app accepts a passenger you never picked up, don't check the rearview mirror right away. Sometimes the safest thing you can do is pretend the back seat is still empty. Sweet dreams, if you can.